the leader of the Technology Liberation Alliance, was found at the end of the branch facility and stabbed Yi Sang in the front. But as we know, that's just a temporary setback for him. Yi Sang was thinking back to those days, and he felt as though he'd been afloat all the time then, enduring life with the feeling of flying in the sky, living without knowing for certainty if he truly had wings, or if he was just a half-wit. Well, even a half-wit can notice certain things that so-called intellectuals and leaders, at the very least, pretend not to notice. Then we have a vision of Dong Rang in sepia. This was clearly from the past, who asked Yi Sang if he stayed up all night long on this research again, telling him that he did many times that, and even said many times that skipping sleep will get him killed. A woman called Dong Biek was impressed by Yi Sang. He forgot to eat or sleep when he got into something. Dong Rang told her that it couldn't be helped, asking Yi Sang what he planned to show them at the Illuminators conference. He looked forward to something that he's been working from tirelessly in his room. Yi Sang told them that he's been working on the mirror. So that's how it started. Then the flashback stops, and Yi Sang said that it always remained unsure if he regretted that day, or reminisced it fondly. Then he woke up to Dante asking if he was alright. He was silent within the manager's office in that Lobotomy Corporation branch facility, as his eyes slowly opened. Lives so easily light, so easily recoverable. He acknowledged that they reversed his death as they always did. Dante was unsure of what to make of that. Apparently, a flash of light burst out of the golden bar as it pierced Yi Sang's chest, which acted like a flashbang without the deafening noise, which allowed Dong Biek to escape. Smiles of the people in the photograph made at each other a distant memory. Dong Rang was casting his eyes into the emptiness, reviewing the situation that they got into. He was sure that Dong Biek intended to stab him instead of Yi Sang, due to her being told that he brought help from the outside by Shirin and Ran, the former killed by a Shi assassin and the latter blowing herself up to avoid a painful interrogation. But that changed when she found out that Yi Sang was one of those among those he brought in. Hong Lu asked if he brought Yi Sang on purpose. He asked back if Hong Lu was asking if he invited him as a meat shield, knowing that he'd be ambushed. As excellent as his ability to predict courses of events it was, he's no prophet. Perhaps not, but so far, you've proven yourself to be a functional sociopath. You have a charm that your kind uses to manipulate and exploit others. Why would you accept Yi Sang from that, especially as he'd make you as less a target? Samjo then pointed out that either way, things went in their favor, as this assault was meant to kill them. Yes, it was made with intent to kill, and Gregor then basically said, "Where the have you been? Are you us?" Yi Sang just got shanked for your boss and you're talking like nothing went wrong. Me, you're a piece of work. Sanjo then replied that it's not their responsibility to compensate for any injuries. If this has left psychological scars, they're free to demand compensation, but the procedures will be rather complex. Oh, skip the corpo speak. That's not what Gregor has a problem with. It's how you're describing that. And he was likely to say something along the lines of pile of. But Yi Sang told him to leave the matter there. He doesn't feel any pain, so no need to pursue that matter further. Dante noted that when the clock turned, every consequence was reversed. Damage to clothing, stains, even the smallest scars caused by what happened, they're all undone, but it doesn't undo the cause of the damage. It's why they have to ask. Dante asked if Yi Sang was okay. Now, last time Dante asked this, they were shut down with a simple yes, so they didn't try again until now. Where Gubo, as Dante noted, had no problem raising his weapon against Yi Sang when claiming to be his compatriot. Yi Sang observing that Dante was rather curious, and then Dante noting that he wasn't dodging the question this time. Yi Sang spoke of once being part of an organization named the League of Nine. Gubo, Dongrang and Dongbek, the one who stabbed him, they were members of it as well. It disbanded and scattered one day, each flown away into their own path. That was all there was to it. Roger understood that this was the short version of the story, and there was a lot of details missing. Based on what happened so far with Gregor, herself and Sinclair so far, I can honestly see her point. She asked if they broke up because things happened and now they're pointing knives at each other. Sinclair asking if they were ever friends at all. Likely speaking from his experience with Chroma. Yi Sang basically told them that it was no more than a moment. That's all they need to know. For now. He was surprisingly more talkative now, and he was likely to talk more about his past soon. Faust did mention that he never was the quiet sort. Dante asking if he's sure he's okay. Yi Sang said that he's always been okay. Dante seeing that if this was his true nature, it might not be a bad thing. Didn't stop Dante from caring, asking if from his, recent memory, had he had any particularly happy or painful moments. Yi Sang noting that Dante is devoting an unusual degree of attention to him. While it doesn't please him, he'll answer since their demeanour was quite unlike the usual. The happiest occasion in recent memory would be when he told an Illuminatus conference something that he was showing them. The most hopeless one would be at the forest where he met Dante. He wanted to die. Yes. He wanted to die, but Dante undid that. He sought death, but was constantly being denied this. He felt hopeless with his recent death, realizing regeneration was flawless and unchanging. Yi Sang hoped that answers his question. Dante didn't know what to say about this, knowing that Yi Sang wanted to die, and they had a part in condemning him to live. Yi Sang told them that they need to be on their way. They have a long road ahead of them, while they still need to retrieve the golden bar from Dongbek. As he walks ahead, Dante could almost see it. The wound was physically erased, but there was still a hole in his chest, with no signs of mending. Yes, it was wide open. As for the League of Nine, they're based on the Gwyn Ho. Or Gwyn Hoi. Yes, I know. I can barely speak English, never mind anything else. Or the Circle of Nine, a group of writers founded at a time when Korea was occupied by Japan, devoted to literature that didn't push politics, which got the person that this sinner was based on into trouble with the Japanese authorities, Yi Sang being his pen name. We're likely to find out how this fits into the context of this setting as we move forward. Samjo then alerted them to something else, specifically a radio communication device being installed in that branch. Then his phone was vibrating, as though the call set it on fire. He answered it and he responded that he'll return right away, telling the others that the laboratory in that K-Corp building has been raided again. Seriously? K-Corp needs to review its security procedures. This has happened twice in one day. I mean, whoever was in charge of security needs to be fired for gross incompetence. Then again, in this case, the T.L.A. came back with greater numbers, and it was a fiercer offence than before. Ultis realizing that what they've dealt with in the branch facility was merely a distraction. Frustrated by this collusion, which could have been easily prevented, then Sinclair found it strange that they've gone through the branch facility and not fought a single abnormality. Well, that's because one of them was fought outside of it. Honglu agreed, as those that they did encounter were resting in their egg form. Heathcliff noted that the T.L.A. found a way to put them in their eggs without lifting a hand. Faust was uncertain of this. If they did have the technology to revert abnormalities into their inactive forms, they possessed technologies to achieve more. This made Gregor nervous, telling Dongrang to watch out. Faust doesn't say ominous for no reason. Dongrang was unconcerned, believing that it'll all work out somehow. In their group is K-Corp's most successful researcher, one with a huge ego, I might add, and better yet, two of the greatest geniuses in the city. Yi Sang and Faust, most likely. Faust would argue against that, as she spoke about that earlier, before they fought the Brazen Bull, and Yi Sang would rather not have that acknowledgement. As soon as they got back to the lobby of that K-Corp lab, they saw employees running away in panic. One of them brought themselves to attention to Dongrang, who noted that the researcher was looking pale. Dante saw the situation as tense, feeling awkward to stand still while this was going on. Don Quixote found something on a shelf, her attention towards books on that shelf, pictures glittering brightly. She picked up one of these books and read it. Yi Sang's attention was drawn to this, possibly bothered by something about it. Soon, a golden haze unfolded and the tale was told. Once upon a time, when everyone had their heads down and eyes fixed on the ground, there was a person who looked up into the sky. In their eyes, there were twinkling stars. They counted the nameless stars no one would look at. The person gave them names and made up stories for them, as they liked. Stories are like skeins of thread without an end. They're drawn and woven together in an effort to find meaning from meaningless. All kinds of stories in the world, happy and sad, circled in the night sky. Then one day, the person's family fell deeply sick. Their life nearing its end. Like any other day, the person spoke into the sky about the grief they felt, and then a droplet of water fell onto the person's head. Looking up, the person found the constellation talking to them. "Dear person who named me and gave me a story, thanks to you, I was cast onto the land and pushed by the flow of time, feeling the world in full. Did you know that stars can grant wishes? The tears I shed will clear you of your pain. Afterwards, rain fell onto the world for a day and a half. Everyone in the rain was all healed up. The person's ill family recovered to health. Since then, the person and their family, as well as the residents of the city, have looked up at the sky and talked about happiness every night." Yeah, I know. Reality sucks, doesn't it? Then Ishmael noted that, well, there's certainly some similarities between this story and the custom within the nests of District 11 of walking outside without an umbrella, to stand in the rain on the night of a certain month every year. And she was annoyed that no one has checked the pamphlet guide that Nest and Backstreets has. Heathcliff likely used it as emergency toilet paper. Rodia used it to wax some insects. She felt awkward about that. Ishmael was getting increasingly annoyed by this, asking her if this was the time to be joking around. Rodia was not joking, but Ishmael seemed unaware of this. Sinclair noted the similarity to the story and how the regeneration ampules worked. Rain that restored you to health. Gregor saw that similarity as well, asking if he's trying to... well, if they're trying to say that it was made from rain dropped by stars. Roger asking if it was nanobots and not watery stuff. Dante asking what she thought of this. Specifically, Faust. She basically told them that she's a woman of science. She prefers facts, not fairy tales. She believes that interpreting stars and clouds to be more Yi Sang's thing. Seeing him as a researcher like her, just not the same. He was silent about this. Then Dong Rang told them that they should hurry. The situation seems pretty serious. They managed to storm all the way into the rooms where experiments were conducted this time. Don Quixote questioned how it could be this peaceful for such a dire predicament. Yes. I mean, no one was running away. Sanjo noted that there was an evacuation order. This wasn't the first emergency that occurred that week. Again, how was the one in charge of security not fired? Anyway, they're worried about they're worried about evacuating again. That might disrupt the 70-hour workweek policy. Dante saw that working in that place, that kind of place, wasn't easy. No, Dante. 70 hours a week? There's a study that working more than 61 hours a week risks high blood pressure and makes mental health issues worse. Other issues that can occur from this include pain in a few areas, strokes, heart disease, and even type 2 diabetes. That last one, I have a cousin with diabetes, and that's not something to treat lightly. This shows all that is wrong with the ridiculously strong East Asian work ethic, where those with this as, well, they're literally working themselves to death. I mean, it's not just Japan that's guilty of this, and they came up with a term for this, karoshi. Other countries in East Asia do this, and they wonder why the birth rate is dropping. Part of the reason is because the work-life balance is increasingly skewed towards work. Well, skewed, rather. And they don't have time off, well, not enough to socialise, never mind date, get married and start a family. Although it might also be because the women in at least 2 of these East Asian countries are practically treated as second class. And it's by no means a recent issue in reality. But in the case of the Project Moon universe, the work model rather, that's used by a different developer, and for the purpose of this will remain nameless, where they've been made to work at, well, as much as 100 hours a week, and if they don't work these hours, and or they burn out, they're fired and replaced with fresh meat to throw onto the barbecue. As for K-Corp, they have bigger problems than that. Anyway, let's get back to the story. Witness then asked how this attack was possible. The building that they were in wasn't one that allowed intruders to sneak into it undetected. Dong Rang wanted to rush them as time was short. He'll explain as they went up the building. Ryoshu objected to this, telling him to give one reason why they should go with him. Mesop agreeing with her, as the contract was fulfilled. Then Dong Rang reminded them that the golden bar was taken by Dong Baek. Ryoshu was annoyed by this, saying trashes. Likely meaning something like, together rash action shall hinder exit strategy. Might be wrong about that though. Roger then asked what the contract actually said. Sanjo couldn't say as he's not knowledgeable when it comes to legal matters. Well, that's obvious as that's more Ufi Association's thing. He then wiped his glasses. And then Ryoshu said SA, which likely meant surrender answers. Sinclair roughly translated it as such, and Sanjo was hesitant to do so, but Ryoshu was most insistent. Then Sinclair made it clear that SA meant she'll assail. She then corrected him by saying that she'll assail Sanjo right now. Then Sanjo told them that this was an emergency and they should go upstairs quickly, Dante agreeing that they should hurry for now. She swore to show sangria, likely meaning slice a nice group rotation in. No, that doesn't sound right. They went upstairs, which was once calm hours ago, but was now in complete mayhem, filled with screams and fleeing people. A researcher was crying and was being grabbed by a T.L.A. member. That researcher was dying, begging Dong Rang to save them. Dong Rang asking the T.L.A. member to let them go, as he can provide intelligence. Yes, he can provide intelligence, even planning to go out for a staff dinner tomorrow to a restaurant that they booked serving delicious meat, not wanting the smell awaiting them to be incense at a funeral. The T.L.A. member had no need for this. Heathcliff finding it amusing that they're walking in unarmed, asking where the robots were. The T.L.A. member had no need for robots either, as he had plenty of useful ones there. Otis suspecting deceit, and then the security came to excise the terrorists. Ishmael, seeing that the odds were in their favour with the K-Corp security. Unfortunately, the T.L.A. member noted that Ran was able to hijack machines before she sacrificed herself, her influence remaining beyond the grave. Then an Ampule helper appeared and told them that they're at K-Corp, they value safety above all else. That's becoming less and less convincing, seeing how unsafe it is there. The security staff were confused by this, then the Ampule helper went red and told them that for everyone's safety, deserters attempting to flee from battle will be injected with a decay ampule according to regulatory rules. The ampule will be launched if they leave the 120-meter radius of the combat area. They were 45 meters away from this. The security staff were not happy about this. The ampule helper then went on to say that if they didn't attack the enemy within the next 5 seconds, the decay ampule will be administered according to regulatory rules. They had 4 seconds remaining. Dante understanding that the enemy was them. The Class 2 Excision staff understanding that their hands were tied and they had to fight those that aren't the terrorists. Misol was surprised by this, although he was good at hiding it better. Don Quixote didn't know why this was happening. The Class 2 Excision staff wanted to live and not be hit by a decay ampule. The ampule helper detected most deserters because of this and was willing to inject regeneration ampules. Misol understood what was going on, as did Otis, who specified that they were weighing their lives with theirs, which is what they did, asking for permission to engage. Dante gave it, and they were forced to fight K-Corp security, who were fighting under coercion from hijacked K-Corp drones. After that battle, Heathcliff took back what he said about them being spineless wimps, as he's surprised that they didn't run away while they were fighting their pawns. The T.L.A. member was silent. Then Heathcliff told him that he's dead now. Bunch of book-smart sods who think using things others made was a talent. Well, they use what they can to achieve the objective. And the T.L.A. member saw this as a fair point, which was why he brought something else from the branch facility. He wore the red sheet EGO derived from the abnormality so that no one will cry. Yes, that wooden one with talismans all over it. Others appeared with this and the sloshing EGO, the one derived from the fairy gentleman, the fairy festival aberration. And then, upon that being revealed, the T.L.A. members, empowered as they were, fought the damned dozen. After fighting the EGO-wielding T.L.A. members, Gregor noticed something off. As if EGO was something to put on all the time and use whenever they like, as he didn't know this was possible, although he knew that it wasn't some kind of magic tool. It takes a lot to keep his sanity from tumbling over. Roger then asked, since the T.L.A. used to be lab workers, how was it possible that they could use it better than they could? Otis said that it wasn't a matter of proficiency in battle. They employed some other trick. Faust saw one possibility. they can reduce abnormalities. Yes, they can reduce, abnormalities to eggs, and also figure out a way to materialize EGO the way that Lobotomy Corporation did. They researched EGO corrosion, like the hammer and nail did, but unlike them, they trained themselves to repress it, using the quip-off deterrence emitted by the golden bar. It's possible to use it without being affected by corrosion, even after a short period. They're using tools, compressed and repressed into general utility. Gregor asked if the Lobotomy Corporation did the same. She confirmed this. They were regular employees as opposed to fixers, well, except one, namely the Red Mist, even as a brain in a prosthetic body. As for the versions that the Damned doesn't use, it's not as refined as what that wing used to have. Which explains why they need Sin resources to manifest them for a short time, and why they need to keep on top of their sanity to prevent corrosion from happening. Ah yes, an in-game explanation to why the Damned Dozen are incapable of wielding EGO like the Lobotomy Corporation did. Outside of specific identities, of course. Then Ishmael asked, if they can do it with the help of the Golden Bar, then that means that it's nearby. Gregor agreed and added that it meant that Dongbik was close as well. Then Utis questioned what K-Corp has been doing, the security of that facility. As Dongbik was freely roaming within it and her presence hasn't been reported. Samjo wanted to object, but he didn't have an argument as he didn't expect them to break in so easily. Dongrang noted that the T.L.A. was formed by former researchers from renowned firms. Then the delusional one with the binary morality known as Don Quixote observed that they were villains of bright minds. Wondering if individuals of bright minds can turn to villainy, she was confused by this. Yes, I expect no less from someone that can only see things in black and white. That's not how the Project Moon universe works, unfortunately. Samjo told her to not be fascinated by them. If they were wise, they'd not quit their enviable positions at large firms for a terrorist organization in the first place. Oh, skip the corpo speak, Samjo! If their positions were so enviable, they wouldn't feel like quitting in the first place. I mean, take a look at J-Corp. They have drones that are overworked and underpaid, and in fear of losing their jobs if they don't miss their cheat spotting quota. W-Corp cleanup crew are in fear of losing their jobs if they don't clean up the warp trains after they arrive at the station to load a save state to what they were prior to killing each other in a timely manner. And Lobotomy Corporation workers, they either got killed painfully or were driven insane by the eldritch horrors that generated in Keflin. Yes. And that's considering that the Lobotomy Corporation had much lower requirements when it came to recruitment. Anyway, they'd only quit if they felt that they had nothing left to lose from doing so. Especially with all that was needed to be done to get it. Now, it's not a decision that anyone would make lightly. Ishmael reflected that by, noting that it might not be the life that they wanted. But Dongrang found this troubling. He didn't mind other locations. But if that place was to be attacked. It caused a major setback. Then it gets worse, as Samjo told him that he has an urgent call from Director Alfonso. Expecting a storm, Dongrang asked if Samjo can take the call for him. He had, but her patience was nearing its limit. Seeing as there was no way around this, he took the call, and while this was happening, an employee was nervously wandering around the hallway. Captain Suckup then informed Dante that if they see a lackey snooping around like that in the middle of danger, they likely have useful information, and make good use of them. She told the researcher that they're agents from a subcontracting firm there to deal with what was there, asking what was going on. The researcher said that they were looking for Shireen, but wasn't able to find her anywhere. They needed to tell her to evacuate. She left her computer on. Sinclair was about to say that she was dead, but Ultis interrupted him and told them that they'll find her and told them to evacuate. The researcher thanked her. Ultis understood that it wouldn't be a good idea to tell her that Shireen was a spy for the T.L.A, who was only recently assassinated by the Shi Association. After the researcher was out of earshot, she told them that the informant was removed, the staff were in a muddle, and Shireen's computer was left on. They had a complete tactical advantage without any fighting being necessary. Dante noting that she took pride in this. The others didn't give a about this. Ishmael then remembered from an earlier conversation that her password was Missy Ran. Dante remembering that she had close relations with Ran, exchanging a lot of messages. They might find a clue as to what they were doing there on her computer. Perhaps gain some insight into the T.L.A. Ultis hiding her surprise badly at his quickness to understand. Gregor saw a problem with this. How to sneak into the office. Who will walk in their bald face and get it done without arousing suspicion? Dante understood that one who can keep a still face was needed to avoid suspicion. Don Quixote wanted them to give that humble knight one more chance, vowing to succeed. Dante instead chose Misol, asking if he can handle it. He replied, "As long as you command, Dante." And Dante counted on him for this. Misol returned from his task. He found one message in Shireen's mailbox that was deemed worth reading. Based on the state of the office, he couldn't print it out, so he memorized the mail's contents. And that was, "I hope you're doing well, Miss Ran. Open parentheses, star, tier, swung dash, caret, close parentheses." Dante then told him to skip the emoticons. Misol would just get to the point about the message after that and continued. "I've been trying to figure out if what you said was really true, but that sucker is making it hard. He's been promoted to team manager, but he wasn't just let in just because he won that best award. And now he's recruited collaborators from the outside. Likely referring to Limbus company. Probably to help with whatever is plotting. They're from a newly formed company. She doesn't know what they're like, but she believes that they're all haughty and arrogant like their client. Well, some of them are, but at least one is delusional, one likely has Williams syndrome due to the hypersociability, one is more laid back, one has got anger issues. Okay, I'll stop there. The plan would proceed regardless. They'd succeed and return to a glorious past. Her first dazzling memory was when she first met her after joining K-Corp, but their goal is more ambitious than that, promising to meet again there, in a past where no technologies existed, allowing everything that existed to shine brighter. There, chickens will freely fly over their meadows, their wings uncut. When a person loses their arm, they'll be comforted and learn to live together even if that arm is missing. We may not be able to enjoy sumptuous feasts or conveniences of modern civilization, and we won't have nearly as many resources at our disposal. In that vastness, we'll be free to walk all day. Shreen was even planning to bring fixers from the outside for the plan. Her juniors have gotten too used to the ampules, where rapid development can only be achieved by means that cause pain and suffering to people. Then she's willing to give up on all the prosperity that it brings. That's all I have to say for now. Yours in haste, Heart, Heart. Yeah, they were into each other, and it would appear that the T.L.A. were a Luddite-type organization, although instead of fearing for their livelihoods, they believed that prosperity and convenience wasn't worth the cost if it meant that others had to suffer for it. Although their ideology is, how can I put it, far too simplified, as lacking an arm would make employment harder. A lack of resources would result in people killing each other for what little there was. I mean, Reverend Thomas Malthus saw this coming. Yes, someone who saw that would be condemned to misery if, as long as the population increased at a faster rate than the food supplies. I mean, why do you think there are wars, famine and starvation, as there are places where there aren't enough to go around? I mean, removing all technologies would replace current problems with new ones. At worst, it's a straw nihilist mentality, where they believe that mass deaths as the only way that works for solving everything, as in starting over. Yeah, they don't sound so sympathetic right now, do they? Heathcliff was annoyed as he didn't need to read the emoticons. Missot saw it as possible that it was a sequence or cipher, so he deemed it reasonable to read it out and let Dante determine how significant that was, rather than determine that himself. Dante told him that it was good work regardless. Ishmael saw this as ironic. She saw it as fortunate that Shreen didn't see the T.L.A. murdering researchers without mercy. Roger suspected that she believed that she was working for a noble cause to end violence until the end of her life. Let's hope that this was the case, as the alternatives, they wouldn't make her look good, but it was probably for the best that she died without learning the truth. After more fighting, Dante did their best to ignore the fierce glare at their clock from below. They noticed a group of staff walking that way, carrying an imposing aura, unlike other K-Corp employees that they've met. Gregor noting that they're K-Corp staff, telling them that they're researchers that haven't been evacuated over there. And these employees were Class 3 excision staff. They were silent, ignoring Gregor's words, and proceeded upstairs. Dongrang told them that they're not there to rescue anyone, they're there to eliminate intruders and keep classified technology secured. He was done with his call. Rescuing was left to Class 1 staff. Don Quixote was excited, believing that Class 1 is the highest level an employee can reach, like Grade 1 is for fixers, seeing them as the noblest. Samjo corrected her by saying that there, Class 1 is the lowest, and the higher the number, the higher the rank. Yes, Class 1s do the tasks too menial for security. Never mind what passed them by. Much to Don Quixote's shock, although she sees the nobility in saving lives, asking how the roles were divided. Dong Rang seemed bigger is better for numbers and riches. Then he spoke of acquiring permission. Dante wanted to know what he meant, as did Heathcliff. Dong Rang said that normally it would require a bunch of paperwork, but since this was an emergency, they'll skip the procedure, believing it would be fine, asking Samjo for confirmation. Samjo believed that it could be managed with 3 days and a half of working on the report overtime. Seriously, what a bureaucratic nightmare! Anyway, Samjo believed that the problem began when he brought them into his lab without any reports. Annoyed by the fact that they're not getting to the point, Heathcliff demanded that they tell them what this permission is about. Dong Rang told them that Dong Bik was heading that way, to the screening room. The security procedures for entering that room can be extremely convoluted. Tell me something I don't know. I'm surprised that you don't need to sign a form just to take and Rodia didn't know what this was about. Hong Lu wanted to know why security was so tight about it. Dong Rang told them that it was at the top of the building. There were 2 ways to make something inaccessible: put it underground, as it was with the branch facilities of Lobotomy Corporation, or at the highest point. I suspect there's some automated defences on the roof to prevent access from aircraft. Well, some means of getting to the top. As I wouldn't be surprised if there was some that thought of that. At the lab where they saw chickens having their limbs cut off repeatedly, Samjo then revealed the hooded man was Maril. He met him once at a job interview at B Corp. The beholder wing, the eye, the one that has strong ties to both the head and the claw. Dong Rang was surprised that he applied for B Corp as well. Samjo then told him that K Corp was his primary choice, but a man of mediocrity like him had to send an application to every wing in the hopes that one will accept it. Dante noted that there were corpses around Mariel. Appalling didn't begin to describe their state. Then Samjo excused himself and said that he needed to use the restroom. This was due to him about to vomit in disgust. Dong Rang told Mariel that the researchers couldn't have been able to fight back at all. Mariel countered by saying that K-Corp employees didn't seem to have a problem with bludgeoning his colleagues, it didn't so much as swing a fist. Now, if that was security, that's kind of their job. If it was researchers, you're punishing them for other people's actions. Yeah, collective guilt. It's not just something that the middle punishes others for. Rudius demanded that he tell them where their boss is. Mariel wanted to know how they're still alive. Heathcliff understood them to refer to the murder machines. They could deal with them. The bomb hurt a bit, though. Mariel didn't see that bomb as meant for annihilation. It was a means. seeing this as an unexpected variable to Ran and Shrin's plan, asking what were they? Faust then told him that even if they were to return to an age without technology, they wouldn't find the peace that they sought. Once accustomed to the luxury brought by technology, people wouldn't be able to withstand life in the past, asking him to think of the time when trips to the backstreets were trending among the rich. They only used the experience to take another look at their own lives and be thankful for everything that they have. Hardly any would live in a less than opulent era given the opportunity. Muriel told her that he doesn't like talkative people and wasn't fond of explaining things to them either. Faust corrected him by stating that she's not talkative and she doesn't require explanations in any field. She wanted to know the difference in perspectives. Muriel told them that they don't take warp trains. They don't eat the meats that the city has to offer either. When the truth was known, they wouldn't even consider something as shallow as backstreets trips. Honglu then stated that elders of his family, who must know greater things than he did, didn't have any problems using warp trains. Yeah, likely because they used first class, where they would be put in stasis until the insanity was over, likely knowing something that regular passengers didn't. Muriel believing that the masses were ignorant. They wouldn't believe it, even if it was shown before their eyes. Heathcliff then asked if that was their conclusion, get rid of everything and make them live in an empty world. Muriel then said you wouldn't get. Then Heathcliff interrupted him by saying that he gets it just fine. Too many don't get it when they say it nicely. They only start empathizing with people like him after they get a couple of bruises and scars on the face. It gives him the urge to wreck it all. Yeah, Heathcliff, the former thug of the syndicates, might not be the brightest of the damned dozen, but even he sees the insanity of what the T.L.A. is doing and planning to do. Although he does understand their reasons. This made Muriel consider excluding the educational background of those that they try to recruit in future. Ishmael saw Heathcliff's point as well, even if she doesn't know his educational background. She sees this as going too far. Then they fought Muriel and his EGO augmented T.L.A. members. After that battle, Ryushu said EY. Not sure what that means, but Yi Sang has attention directed from her. Now she wants to talk to him about something. Ryushu asking why Dongrang, the man who keeps clinging to them, who claims to be a friend, what was the relationship? Yi Sang, as far as he was concerned, saw that their tie had long since been severed. She doesn't like getting involved in the personal affairs of others or speaking for longer than she needs to. And she finds the smile of the ignorance-feigning scoundrel Dongrang detestable. Well, the bigger the smile, the sharper the knife. She noted that one desk was even more disgusting than the others, as it was clean and empty. The name tag below had his name. Yi Sang was silent at this. Dante realized that he wanted to give that position to Yi Sang all along. Ishmael noting that this was headhunting, a violation of moral principles. Between firms. Ryushu said, baffled. Ishmael asking what that meant, but for once, she meant what she said. She was truly baffled. Ryushu then asked what she did on that ship that she used to work on. Was it as a fixer? Believing that she had serious delusions about wings and firms, did she dump her common sense into the Great Lake as chum? She saw things for what they were. Bringing up morality, certainly binary morality, in that world. She saw it as an amusing joke. Missot saw headhunting and changing jobs between firms as done based on interests and efficiency. Heathcliff saw this as meaning that she was a hillbilly, or should he say a boostbilly? This annoyed her, and before she had a desire to swing her mace somewhere painful, Dante saw this as strange. Dong Rang wasn't taking Yi Sang's thoughts into account. Yi Sang seeing it as not important. Thoughts were rather meagre things. Rather meagre things indeed, and he's used to the life of being taxidermied. Sinclair asking if he really didn't mind when he joined Limbus Company, asking if they all received the same offer. Dante then remembered that they'd have the aspects carved. They didn't remember what it was, but they wanted this. Sinclair knew that, what he was offered when he joined. Yi Sang said, "When I do, the thing that he wished for dearly." Ishmael said that the thing that she recited to herself every night. Uruti said that the thing that she thought would be impossible. Fausta, she said that they promised to make it a possibility. Don Quixote was silent. Gregor asking how thoroughly they looked into their backgrounds. Heathcliff considered that they had their own wish-granting tales, just like that storybook that they read earlier. Yi Sang was even one that had a wish that they saw to be a futile dream. Heathcliff was confused about him not being that desperate for it, asking why he joined. Yi Sang walked so long that his feet hurt. A shower of rain was pouring down as well. The bus he saw then appeared rather inviting. Ryushu found that amusing, as that can't be it. Then Faust interrupted her. They're forbidden to disclose the contents of the job contract in detail. Ryushu saw it as foul to act high and mighty when she's in the same position as them. Faust telling them to proceed. Dante then noted that, unlike the others, Yi Sang wouldn't vocalize his pain. They discovered his injuries late because of that. What was he holding in? They were reminded of the voice in his chest. Or rather, the void in his chest that he caught a glimpse of. Was he keeping it in, or was it spilling out? Yes. I suspect that with Gregor, he wanted to find a way of removing the biomimetic arm. With Roger, it's likely something to do with supplying a great big heap of cash to her hometown or something like that. With Sinclair, not sure about him. Probably to heal the psychological damage? Well, whatever it is, we're likely to find out eventually. Meanwhile, they all kept moving. It would appear confrontation is nearing. That will be in the next part of this law series. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!